You make me feel whisper in my ear.
Hello, hello. I haven't done this in a couple months, so it's feeling very foreign to me. A lot has happened since I've seen you last. I've gone through 2 sets of nails that I didn't even get to show on camera, new haircut, new glasses that are allegedly anti-glare, but I will be the judge of that in the edit. Do we have any queens with a chronic cough in the chat? If you have a chronic cough, can we get a in the comments? That was so disgusting. Hey, what's up, you guys? Sorry I haven't made a video in a while. I've been going through it, but today we're gonna talk about what used to be my favorite show. It's still largely one of my favorite shows, but it's undeniable that Drag Race has gone through some sort of transformation in the past 5 or so years. I don't know what changed at the RPDR assembly line, but for some reason, year after year, the seasons are not hitting the same way that they used to. The first season that I ever watched was All Stars 2, and I didn't know how badly I was being spoiled at the time. It was such good television. It was an event, and the 2 subsequent All Stars seasons definitely had their rocky moments, but I think overall they were still good. But since then, Drag Race has struggled a bit to capture the same magic that they used to really effortlessly create. This is a video critiquing production. It has very little to do with the people that they actually cast. While that is a production choice, usually the queens are the best part of the season anyways. Drag Race started out somewhat parodying America's Next Top Model, with RuPaul literally being the drag queen equivalent of Tyra Banks. But I think what mainly differentiates these shows is the casting. Personally, I watched ANTM for Tyra. She was definitely the core of that show. But when it comes to Drag Race, I watch for the queens. I don't really care about RuPaul, to be honest. I care about RuPaul to the extent that she is a trailblazer, but I don't really watch the program for her. I watch it for these interactions between the contestants. And my interest is sustained year over year because they keep platforming these really talented queer people. Even though they sign up to participate, they are at the whims of production decisions, whether or not it benefits them, and the fandom seems to be willfully ignorant of that at times. The trend over the past few years seems to be the more volatile the viewer becomes, the more Drag Race, the production, and the contestants try to anticipate those needs and those reactions by manufacturing outcomes. But the thing they aren't as cognizant of is that the fandom really is full of monsters, evil, jobless people, and the outcomes aren't going to satisfy everyone anyways. So you might as well just make a good show that feels earnest. It's like every season they hear the feedback and then immediately manufacture the next season as a response to those complaints. And I'm finding that it doesn't leave a lot of room for the show to breathe, particularly in seasons where they're inviting contestants back. I think Drag Race has dulled, it feels really inorganic, and it's escalated to the point where the queens heavily monitor their own behavior for fear that their every single move is going to be scrutinized by a really uncharitable fan base. Lately, it feels like only the main seasons are created in earnest, when the audience doesn't know the queens and fan reception is shaped by the narratives that we are shown. Production can anticipate to some extent who they want to do well, and they might have a preconceived idea for certain contestants coming in, but with a new crop of queens, it's hard for them to anticipate exactly what's going to happen because they haven't worked with them before. But then it feels like every spin-off season serves as a response to how things should have gone. It's almost as if they're correcting some sort of karmic injustice, like who deserved the crown, who was robbed, did this person go home too soon, did this winner only win because of identity politics. Like, these things constantly come up. All Stars 2 was almost 10 years ago. I've been in the fandom for a long time. I love to know how the TV sausage is made. I am under no illusion that Drag Race and reality TV by extension is fair. I think production influence can be necessary to make a show that's gripping. But for the past couple years, they've been producing All Stars with such a heavy hand that it's not even fun. I can agree that it's sometimes less entertaining if a winner is really obvious. I can get behind the critique that season 15 might have been a little less interesting because it was Sasha Colby's to lose. Absolutely, she's a total pro, but she still had some formidable opponents in that finale. Like, Drag Race is technically a competition. The primary tension of a competitive story comes from not knowing who's gonna win. When it's a blank slate regular season, this tension is easier to maintain. Some queens might seem like a big threat, but then they go home right away, like Irene in season 15. Or they're a big name and they slay the whole season, like Sasha. We don't know until it happens, though, unless you're reading the Reddit leaks, which I guess is fun for some. That's not my vibe. Oh, my tea is still too hot. Piping. That hurt my hand. The insufferable part as of late is that everyone comes on to an All-Stars or a Versus the World with some sense of a pre-built narrative. Do they have something to prove? Do they want to maintain their original perception? Do they just want to win a crown once eventually? At first, it was such a boon. Take a bunch of queens who almost won and see how the competition shakes out when you have a bunch of franchise heavy hitters competing with one another. At the time of All-Stars 2, I was certainly under the impression that they would continue to space out the seasons so that they would have, top 6, top 7 finalists to invite back, to have another lineup that was like All-Stars 2 and like All-Stars 1 to an extent, but that's a different program. We don't talk about her. But AS2, Blessing and a Curse, was such a smash hit that they started doing the All-Star seasons yearly, even adding in Versus the World, which is basically the same. But I don't think it was until more recently that the judging on Drag Race, particularly the All-Stars judging, started to feel so wonky. Again, I don't think Drag Race is fair. I think some production meddling is necessary to make a show that we want to watch. As the audience, we don't come to the table with a complete sense of neutrality either. We want our faves to win. And what you think is fair might not be what I think is fair, might not be what that person over there thinks is fair. Kennedy Davenport famously once said, "Opinions are like assholes." You know the rest. I adore a reality TV competition show. I have a vested interest in them. And I don't want to sit here and say that I watch this type of television in the correct way, but I approach these shows from the perspective that they are unscripted entertainment that happens to follow the structure of a competition, not a competition that happens to be televised. I feel this way about a lot of programs. I'm watching Boys to Planet right now. Don't ask me about it. I will not answer comments about that show. I'm not voting for anybody. I don't have the app. I am an observer. A competition that airs on TV is something like the actual Olympics, because they say All Stars is the Olympics of drag all the time. But the Olympics are merit-based. Sorry. So these shows aren't fair. I can anticipate the outcomes aren't necessarily going to be consistent with what I see on the screen. But on the other hand, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm satisfied when they pick and choose whatever secret metrics they evaluate the queens on in order to get a certain outcome. And it's even more difficult to reconcile with this when it's inconsistent. I think the best example of this would be any season finale where a lip sync battle determines the crown, because we see two opposing arguments. And of course, the production, the show never weighs in on why they've chosen a winner. They leave it up to the fans to argue. With the lip sync battles, it kind of goes either way. I think the more intuitive argument for these episodes is we're evaluating these queens based on a lip sync. Whoever wins the lip sync wins the finale. They win the episode, they win the season. But on the other hand, we know of cases where a queen doesn't win the final lip sync, and usually it's a hodgepodge edit. It's justified by their previous track record leading up to the finale. That's how we can justify their win. They might not have absolutely devoured in the last episode, but because they have enough wins under their belt, their track record speaks for itself, and they deserve the crown anyways. I think Sasha Velour, Evie Oddly, Nymphia Wind all had worse track records, but their crownings were justified because of their showings in the finale. Alternatively, we have Aquaria, Jinx, Ginger Minge, where it's widely known that each of them received favorable edits to make it look like they weren't totally eaten up because they were the queens production wanted to win. And again, I don't want this to reflect badly on the performers. It's not Ginger's fault that All Stars 10 was bad because she showed up. It really isn't. Production clearly wanted to force an outcome for her, but she is not in the driver's seat of that decision. But it does make for a less compelling program. And I'm unsympathetic to production. They make the show. If they want a certain person to win, they don't have to do a lip sync finale. No one's holding a gun to their head and forcing them to do it, especially if they want a queen to win who isn't going to be the most successful in that format. I know lip syncing is like a core tenet of the show. It's the backbone of the program, but it shouldn't be the finale if it doesn't actually determine the winner. I think we should go back to the verse challenges and the pageant speeches. That format benefits from its ambiguity because those episodes feel more like a final lap and a culmination of the season behind it. The lip sync finales, whether or not the show says we're evaluating you based on the lip syncs and track record, if you're doing a self-contained challenge, people are going to evaluate the queens on the self-contained challenge. The verse challenge, performance number, and interviews, things that they now do in the semifinal episode, they've maintained the tone of this type of finale episode, even though they don't determine the winner in the same way anymore, but it's still addressing everything that led up to now. It's been famously said that RuPaul developed All Stars to give Chad Michaels a crown before she dies. But how many of the recent seasons actually feel like they were devised for someone specific to win? I do think we can trace this back to All Stars 5. The previous couple seasons had arguably some obvious early outs, but AS5 was the first one where the casting was like wildly uneven. A lot of people don't love this season. I enjoyed it for being the Shay Jujubee Cracker show, but literally once Cracker's villain arc started in episode 2, it was Shay's to lose, almost making up for Rose Petal Gate. All Stars 8 was so egregious that I stopped watching the show for 2 years because I was so bored, and they so obviously wanted Jimbo to win after the upset that was UK versus the World 1, which is even furthered by Lemon and Cheryl coming off of that season and having wicked redemption arcs in Canada versus the World 2, and Raja won the first season of Canada versus the World to make up for losing All Star 6. Again, this is not to discredit any queen for taking the opportunity to go on TV. I think queer people presenting a multitude of talents on an international scale is a net good. And I don't want to fault any of the queens for keeping the show alive because they come back. And what I'm about to say isn't a knock on anybody's deservedness of winning or their talent, but it does feel disingenuous when production feels as though they have a rigid plan in place before anybody has even arrived. And I do think it can make the queen not look bad, but I think it leads to people taking the win a little bit less seriously. Like Jimbo winning All Stars 8. Jimbo shouldn't have even been on that season. They need to make like a Superstars that's like separate from All Stars. If All Stars means we're just inviting people back, they need to like start doing different seasons where it's an accumulation of people who are known for being really good at the show. When a crowning happens like that, it's going to keep being disputed because it doesn't feel organic. And the same thing is going to happen with the Ginger. Spoiler alert, I know this video is going to come out like 2 months after All Stars ended, but Ginger unceremoniously won All Stars 10, much to the general public's chagrin. Again, it's not her fault. I feel like production did her dirty. It was reasonable for them to anticipate that she was going to get some backlash, especially since this is her 4th lap. But I guess the saving grace is that she's not going to return unless they do an all winners. Okay, we're going to talk about All Stars 10 now. This is not going to be like a super deep episode by episode recap. I pretty much agree with everything the Drag Detective said in his video. In general, I don't think the format totally works. Something needs to change with the numbers. We either need more episodes, like each bracket needs to be an episode longer, they need to edit the point system, or maybe we cast one less queen per bracket, because I personally did not feel like it was anybody's game. I think these should be 18 episode seasons. If they're gonna air on a streamer anyways, like they're on Paramount Plus in the States, the season length shouldn't matter. Like if they're worried about the big Drag Race machine and overlap and stuff, maybe do a triple premiere where you show the first episode of each bracket. I don't know. If the brackets were 4 episodes each, I think it might have been better for maintaining tension. And they also need to have a tiebreaker in place. I felt like that was not made clear, but the Mistress Georges 1.5 point split from winning that lip sync, that was a little suspicious. And I think it's because production anticipated that that bracket had a higher likelihood of not getting the people that they wanted through, because Georges won that lip sync against Mistress. So that was confusing for me. Again, I don't know if 3 episodes are enough to maintain that tension, because if only 3 people move on, by the end of the 2nd episode, 2 of the people are a lock. I prefer the feeling that it's anybody's game and anybody can cross the finish line, but I wasn't getting that from this. We would also get more time with each queen. I really enjoyed having queens return who I didn't know as well, like Phoenix. Nicole Paige Brooks from Atlanta, Georgia is an icon. Acid Betty had an amazing showing. Just like do 4 episodes and give the bracket a month of a spotlight, you know what I mean? Then the merge was awful. It felt like it only happened to give them a little bit of wiggle room to get rid of queens that they really didn't want before the finale. Granted, I do think Cynthia and Mistress were fairly eliminated, but then bringing an eliminated queen back in the finale felt weird, especially when they did the bracket system and then they only did 3 more episodes of filming. I thought that they would bring back the 9 people who won their brackets and then put that 10th wild card in as well, and then do, let's say, 5 competitive episodes, and then the winner is picked from the top 5. With only 12 episodes, 3 per bracket, and then 3 for the merge, it felt like the season was cut weirdly short. And the merge especially felt like it undermined the format. Because if this is the cream of the crop from each of these brackets, you only want them for 3 more episodes. You brought them back to do Snatch Game, talent show, and then lip sync. Lollapalooza. It just felt weird. It felt like the season didn't mean anything. I loved seeing these people on TV, but it didn't really make sense as a show. The payoff of the bracket system wasn't very satisfying. Going bracket by bracket now, take a sip every time I say bracket, I really enjoyed bracket 1. Everything felt fair and organic, and it certainly doesn't hurt that Bosco and Aja are 2 of my favorite queens from the franchise. Bracket 2 obviously brought the drama, but again, it felt for the most part organic. Like, I agreed with the wins. The only rigged issue that I didn't love was the lip sync tie. And I think these 3 episodes had a nice contrast with the first 3 just because there was so much more friction. Bracket 3 was designed around justifying Ginger's win. Like, her and Daya did not have the best outfits in episode 1. And the next 2 episodes had improv and country music challenges, which I think Ginger did well at, but they definitely play to her strengths. I don't think the improv challenge was necessarily designed specifically for Ginger to do well, but the fact that they did country music for the performance challenge, there's plausible deniability there for sure, but it does give me pause. I also do think that the brackets were generally fair relative to one another in the sense that they each did a comedy, design, and performance challenge, but if they weren't being judged in pairs, the design challenge win for bracket 3 should have been Acid and Alyssa. And then the first episode back being Snatch Game was wild. I mean, it made sense for it to happen post-merge, but again, I think the merge was bad. It was too short to be meaningful. If Ginger has ever unequivocally won anything in this show, it is this Snatch Game. She's competed in it 4 times. She's won it 3 times. She's deserved truly, undeniably to win it 1 time, and it's this one. Her Reba was so funny. I'm not saying that she didn't deserve to win the other 2, but Reba was a slam dunk. Reba working at the drive-thru, everybody in the room laughed. And by everybody, I mean me alone in my apartment. The talent show was good. I disagree with the Lydia slander. I thought her performance was excellent. Then I didn't even watch the lip sync SmackDown. I don't know if this is a hot take. I do think the finales are the worst episodes of Drag Race every season. They're not interesting to me. I often skip them. It's also a really difficult pitch to have a lip sync competition determine the winner of the season and not crown Georges. She is just so impeccable. And then we also know, thanks to a rogue fashion photo review editor, whether or not this was on purpose to drum engagement and spark debate in the fandom, I'm curious about. But we do have photo evidence of Carrie Colby doing a cartwheel against Ginger Minj that was just cut from the episode. I will repeat this over and over and over again. It's not Ginger's fault that she won. She showed up. She did a good job. But the show being so in her favor undermines her success. We're looping back to the broader concepts I brought up earlier in the video. I said that I don't think these competition shows are fair, and I love combing through the editing and the story producing of shows like this to see how the creators want us to feel. I have a vested interest in how they communicate these things, but since I watch with that lens, it leads to a pretty jaded and impersonal viewing experience, since I don't really suspend my disbelief. However, if you are asking an audience to believe at face value in the simplest and least complicated terms that the last challenge of a competitive program is a lip syncing one, and that surviving to this point and winning the tourney will snatch you the crown, but then the person who does the best doesn't win, doesn't that betray the whole system and shatter the audience's investment? I know I just said I don't watch the finales. I do appreciate the live, more freeform ones where the queens walk in their ultimate looks, the finalists do original songs, because they don't really pitch it as the person with the best song wins. The format makes the crowning feel more plausible. Maybe it's because it's more similar to a pageant, and the implication is that they're being evaluated on their whole package, not just the finale episode. A lip syncing competition on the main stage doesn't have the extravagance I'm looking for from this program, especially when they edit the show to justify someone like Ginger or Jinx winning the program at something that isn't their strength. They're so good at other things. To be honest, if they had a few more episodes leading up to the end and it was a finale talent show, Ginger had a good talent. Uh-oh, did I just unlock a new finale format? World of Wonder, my inbox is open. You guys can bill me. I would happily consult on Canada's Drag Race. And you know what? I'll do the car show too. If Canada's Drag Race isn't hiring, but Drag Race Canada is, I'll do it. Before we wrap, I want to touch on casting. I think if you've returned to an All-Stars and made the finale, then you shouldn't go back on an All-Stars unless everyone else is a returning queen. They should start doing seasons like that are just return All-Stars. I wouldn't feel this way in all cases. There are exceptions. For example, if you've competed on an All-Stars with an irregular format, like All-Stars 1. That season was nuts. And it was pleasant when each of the queens came back and got to compete in a regular format, because All-Stars 1 was kind of a wasted opportunity. Any AS1 re-entrant, I support. Also, queens who either returned for All-Stars 9 or will return since, I feel differently about that because it was a charity season and no one went home. One of the big issues, though, with the All-Stars 10 lineup is that you can look at the cast and pretty confidently estimate that Ginger and Georgia are going to be the top two because they've proven that they're really good at the show. Georgia's had a great showing on All Stars 9. Again, it doesn't bother me that she came back because this type of season is different, but she has more experience. Also, if Ginger hadn't returned for All Stars 6 and did well, coming back for All-Stars 10 wouldn't have bothered me as much because she didn't do great on All-Stars 2. I know Aja is technically in this category as well when it comes to being a returning All-Star, but she didn't do insanely well either time she did Drag Race. Also, her original 2 seasons were pretty much back to back, and she's been through a lot of change in the public eye since then. So I'm glad that she had the opportunity to reintroduce herself. Honestly, Aja was such a star this season, along with Bosco. Bosco is my bias, but Aja's vulnerability made me fall in love with her all over again. Long story short, if you've done well on All Stars, don't come back. Do not come unless the playing field is even. I was gonna do Toots and Boots, but I'm starting to feel a little tired and it's almost my bedtime. My favorite look of the season is Deja Sky's coming and going. She has never looked better, and this look did not get enough buzz. Honorable mention to Irene's foil look. I'm still thinking about her. My golden boot of the season. This is a really hard choice. There are multiple looks on this season that are so bad that they oscillate back to being iconic for me. I'm looking at Nicole Paige Brooks' 8 Ball. I'm looking at Cynthia Lee Fontaine's paper look. I am obsessed. I actually love both of these looks so much. They both have a je ne sais quoi, an it factor, but I think the actual worst look of the season for me, this is my opinion, Cynthia Lee Fontaine's tiramisu suit. It just wasn't right, and I'm sure she knows that too. Anyways, justice for Denali, justice for Nicole Paige Brooks, she is an institution that will never die, and justice for Acid Betty. Acid Betty gave us one of the best moments of this entire run of television when she got Cynthia into the top 9 by using the point system. The speech that she gave at the end where she was like, I really want my friend to make it, was so iconic. Also, Paper Dress Gate. We're not here to litigate on that today, but that was crazy. Thank you so much for watching. I feel like this was a bunch of incoherent ramblings. I hope you enjoyed my exploration of the greater Drag Race franchise through All Stars 10's lens. Like and subscribe. I don't know what's next for this channel, but I will be seeing you on the main very soon. If this video has found you and you don't know who I am, this is my second channel. I review video games over on my main. Come check it out. Did you like All Stars 10? Are you enjoying All Stars at all? Personally, I've been loving the main seasons. 17 is like the best thing Drag Race has done for me in like a really long time. Where are the people at? Where are my people at? Roxy Andrews' impact is forever. I've got to go.